All right, we're going to do a talk for you.
Somehow we're going to do it.
This is my husband, Bill, and he is a psychiatrist with specialty in, he's a psychiatrist, and he spent 40 years in counseling private practice for the most part, and half of those years have been spent in Asia working with missionaries.
And LeaAnn has an MA in religion from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School and makes hospitality happen wherever she goes. And that's been a lot of places. We've lived in close to 40 different homes in 3 countries. Together, we've raised 5 adult children.
Now, for most of our life, God has given us an interesting ringside seat on 2 different, what do we call it?
Unlikely.
2 different unlikely fields. That's mental health and missions. And that's what we're going to share with you today, some of the things that he's taught us over the years.
So we already did this. So next time you're in church, look down your church pew or on your Zoom screen and see all the people. That's where God gets missionaries. And the kinds of people on that pew are the same kinds of people that become missionaries.
Missionaries are ordinary people with ordinary problems. Their calling, though, leads to some extra pressures.
They need at least as much support as the rest of us.
I thought a lot about how COVID has actually revealed our emotional fragility. It's allowed us to have a small taste of what many people without privilege experience all the time, their freedoms being limited at every turn. Bill is a professional counselor, but that's just a small part of missionary care. Like a lot of you, we've done lots of member care over the years, including friendship, practical support, prayer, lay counseling, and mentoring. In our experience, cross-cultural workers feel very fragile when they come back from the field. Go ahead.
They're exhausted by their preparation to leave their homes there, and then they often face grueling travel, and they come back battered. Yes, we always did.
Yes, we always did. Then they slam into American culture, which always feels overwhelming.
The MKs who return to the US commonly describe Americans as loud, materialistic, and self-centered.
I don't know what they say about Canadians.
One MK said they act like the whole rest of the world doesn't matter.
Of course, different people will need different kinds of help. But here's a few things that we thought you might want to think about if you find yourself in the position of taking care of missionaries.
Like housing, transportation, navigating the US healthcare system.
Oh.
It's not easy.
Remember that the people at your church now are not the same people that were there when your missionaries left. Help them connect.
There are lots of ways to be hospitable. Okay, here's our first story. Our missionary friend Bob worked in China. The police came to his home and took him away in the middle of the night. As you can imagine, his wife and 2 little girls were frantic. They had no idea if they would ever see him again. Eventually, he was released, but the police kept harassing him. Finally, they had to leave the country on short notice. They went home to the States for a month or so.
And then he came to Thailand, and we had him over for dinner. And boy, did he look exhausted.
I said, Bob, you must have told your story 100 times in America, but if you feel like telling it again, we'd really love to hear what happened. It must have been really scary.
Tears welled up in his eyes, and he shook his head and said, nobody really wanted to hear my story. In about 30 seconds, their eyes would glaze over, they'd look away, and at the soonest chance they got, they would change the subject to the football game.
It's not their fault. Most people in America just can't relate.
And all missionaries know how it is. They talk about how frustrating it is and how dismissive it feels.
Okay, everybody, hear this. Many people will not listen well, but I hope you will. Listen to as many stories as they will tell you and ask for more.
Can we fast
Can you hear this?
This is where they can't hear. No, it doesn't come here.
Okay. We could cut out the Mattel video.
Oh man. Okay.
I can't hear the video.
You can't hear it?
Oh man.
Who's that?
No audio.
Okay, thank you.
Go back to share screen.
It's powerful though.
Yeah, I'm sorry you folks can't hear the
Maybe it's right
audio.
here.
Well, you'll have a link. You'll be able to listen to it later. Okay, well, sorry about that. Okay, but it's a good reminder. In light of that, let's be sure to pray with them and not just for them.
Steve, sorry, technician Steve, can you send us a message about what's happening? We can't hear if anybody can hear the video or not, or if we need to do something different. So thank you. You want to admit him. All right, we want to talk about friendship. You know, when missionaries leave to go overseas, they have a lot of friends. Why, you couldn't even raise support without a lot of friends. I hope that we can get it out of our head that friendship has to stop when people move overseas.
Staying connected with your missionary friend is easier than ever and might prove to be the best way to keep them feeling loved and appreciated. Before they leave, figure out what platform is best, decide when the good times are to connect across time zones.
And when they come home again, enjoy them. They have fascinating stories. They're just waiting to tell somebody.
Rest.
That's a big one.
Many missionaries will not feel comfortable taking time to rest because they feel pressure of expectation from family, friends, and supporting churches. Making space for rest and prayer gives room for God to recharge them and help them put things in perspective.
And you might be their best advocate to give them permission to do this. Remember, even Jesus went to the desert for 40 days.
And he told his disciples to come away to a lonely place. Marriage. Marriages need room to grow.
We have had some very difficult times in our marriage, haven't we?
Yes. And we needed to ask others for help to make it through those hard places and grow.
You know, I think it's really unrealistic in this day and age to think that any marriage will thrive without intentional effort and support.
We want to encourage our missionaries to take advantage of opportunities for coaching, counseling, or learning new skills while they have access to these resources.
Yes, but at the same time, everybody's different. They may just wish you'd stop meddling and let them get on with their to-do list.
Make sure their kids aren't overlooked. Parents will be thinking about their children's education.
And moving between countries is full of huge transitions for everyone. Kids often feel weird and misunderstood, but don't know how to express it. They're often deeply grieving the loss of what's been normal to them. That certainly was true for our kids.
Many therapists say that unresolved grief is one of the deepest burdens that missionaries carry. What does a depressed missionary look like? Here's what Counselor Kay Bruner shares in her blog.
That's a picture of me in April 2003, when I was suffering from major depression and a little side of psychosis now again.
They may look fine. They may even say they're fine, especially if they sense you don't have time to listen, but they may not really be fine, and you won't find out unless you listen well.
Can I work as a missionary if I have mental health issues?
It depends. Working overseas is emotionally difficult. It's your job to make sure you're sent to a place where you have access to the resources you need, so you can stay on track with your goals and make plans if your symptoms worsen. Discuss all this in detail with your therapist. And it goes without saying that you need to be honest with yourself and with your organization. It will help your organization and your mission pastor if you give permission for your therapist to communicate directly with them if he or she feels you're going overseas is an acceptable risk.
If you're a member of a church missions committee, don't make blanket policies that cover everybody. Make sure that all of the above conditions are satisfied and then encourage them to go. Okay, we have lots of information and we're galloping through this because we got a late start, but all the resources you see will be in the PDF that will be accompanying the PowerPoint that we'll eventually make available to you if you put your information, your contact information.
In addition to local Christian counselors, there are a few specialty centers in the U.S. that have comprehensive services, and some have a retreat model. Some of the most well-known ones are Link Care, Alongside, Godspeed Resources, and Barnabas International, but there are many others with less comprehensive services.
And note that if you're with an organization and you don't feel like they have good member care, be aware that you can still access resources. And if I were you, I'd start with Barnabas International.
In addition, there are some places that provide Christian counseling by internet. I've only heard of a few, and I'm only familiar with the first two on this list. And I've added my website to the list, even though I just moved back to America and I'm still in the process of getting included on various insurance plans. Oh.
So our journey as missionaries began in 1988 with Wycliffe Bible Translators.
Wycliffe was the first mission to have a counseling department for its workers.
We went to the Philippines, but unfortunately we had to return after 3 years because of a crisis pregnancy.
We went back overseas in 2003, this time to Thailand, with a sense that God wanted to use us to help support the many missionaries in that part of the world who work in difficult or closed countries.
But we had no idea what all that God had in mind.
We were quickly joined by other like-minded folks, so that now, after 17 years, there is a counseling center with about 16 Western and Thai counselors that serves over 500 missionaries and family members every year.
And there's also the Well in Thailand, which does some of the same things as Cornerstone, but also has really great programs in Thai and in English on topics like healing prayer, spiritual direction, sexual recovery, marriage support, even art therapy and family transition retreats. Oh, yeah,
Now,
okay, we'll say in a minute. It's okay.
The question is, will you be able to hear the sound? Can somebody respond?
Can we hear this?
Thumbs up if you hear the
No, we can't hear it.
Oh, no. Okay.
I can hear it.
All right. You will get the link for this. You'll be able to watch this later.
Okay, you want to just stop?
I'll just
Can
go
you-
on to the next one.
Maybe we can.
Okay.
Oh, that makes me sad.
Yeah, it's very good. Maybe later.
That was the video on our Cornerstone website, so it's always available.
There are several,
It's okay, go ahead.
there are several other overseas counseling centers that serve large regions of the world. Cornerstone and the Well in Thailand serve all of Southeast Asia and parts of India, China, and Central Asia. This allows workers to get the help they need and avoid the stress and expense of coming home.
Their kids can stay in school, and that the price is very reasonable compared to here, especially because the payment is made by donation.
These other centers are in Turkey, East Africa, and Spain. Make sure your missionaries know about these counseling centers.
If you have the gift of hospitality, you might want to think about moving close to one of these counseling centers, because people are always saying that often hotel prices keep them from being able to come from their country to get counseling.
Yeah,
That's-
sometimes the
that's-
expense of
yeah.
having to stay in a hotel prevents them from coming to get the help they need.
I can turn it.
Importantly, these counseling centers provide care for children and adolescents. We've commonly seen these issues listed here.
Hmm.
Lots of them.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Here's our family and a couple of spouses. Aren't they cute?
Sometimes we're happy like this, but honey, did you notice how many of those things on that list you just showed of problems of adolescents showed up in our family?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
Our audience would never believe it.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, question. What if worldwide the Church of Christ was known as a source of hope and healing for our deepest pain?
For centuries, all over the world, the church has sought to express the gospel through meeting practical needs like medicine,
Education, orphan care, food distribution, digging wells for clean water, and agricultural assistance so more people could grow more food.
In more recent years, the church has used platforms like Business as Mission and leadership development as platforms for evangelism and discipleship. And many countries still need such assistance.
But there are very few countries that have adequate mental health care.
All right, now we want to play a clip of a TED Talk, but it's not going to work. So we will just go on
Well,
and you
can
can
take
get the
1
link
minute.
later.
Can we take 1
You
minute?
can try it.
Okay.
Cheryl Jensen.
There, right there,
Yeah,
share
This is
sound.
Michelle O'Donnell.
My wife is a computer genius.
No, wait, let me do this first and then this.
Let me do it because my finger fits there better.
It worked.
Yeah, okay, we will get the sound, I think.
Social networks.
Okay, can you
I
hear
see some
that?
nodding heads there.
Yes.
Yes.
But beyond the staggering numbers, what's truly important from a global health point of view, what's truly worrying from a global health point of view, is that the vast majority of these affected individuals do not receive the care that we know can transform their lives. And remember, we do have robust evidence that a range of interventions, medicines, psychological interventions, and social interventions can make a vast difference. And yet, even in the best resourced countries, for example, here in Europe, roughly 50% of affected people don't receive these interventions. To give you a perspective, if I had to translate the proportion of psychiatrists in the population that one might see in Britain to India, one might expect roughly 150,000 psychiatrists in India. In reality, take a guess. The actual number is about 3,000, about 2% of that number. It became quickly apparent to me that I couldn't follow the sorts of mental health care models that I had been trained in, one that relied heavily on specialized, expensive mental health professionals to provide mental health care in countries like India and Zimbabwe. I had to think out of the box about some other model of care. It was then that I came across these books. And in these books, I discovered the idea of task shifting in global health. The idea is actually quite simple. The idea is, when you're short of specialized healthcare professionals, use whoever is available in the community, train them to provide a range of healthcare interventions. And in these books, I read inspiring examples, for example, of how ordinary people had been trained to deliver babies, diagnose and treat early pneumonia to great effect. And it struck me that if you could train ordinary people to deliver such complex healthcare interventions, then perhaps they could also do the same with mental health care.
Okay.
He goes over He talks a little.
There are nearly
No, just
Okay.
there.
Mental health is a great need in the world.
And we believe God wants to bring love, his love, to meet it. Our places of pain are the most intimate places, and God wants to go there with his healing power.
We want to show you some quick views into what other people are doing. Let's look at the creativity of God as he calls people to meet these needs.
We might skip over some of these to keep going. We wanted to point out that since more nationals are being educated, that the materials that are available are getting better and better because they can be translated and adapted for cultural sensitivity by nationals. Keep going. Okay, here's a story. When a stern government official from a closed Muslim story approached the Christian psychologist, he was very nervous. "Can you help me?" asked the official. "We have thousands of refugees in my country, and we really don't know what to do with them." He went on to say, "We do not want your money. We don't want your food, and we certainly do not want your God. But we simply must find a way to help these people. They've all been traumatized." Go ahead and do that. Whoopsie.
Oops. Oops. Wow.
There, that's where we are.
Yeah.
Okay, overwhelmed with despair, he begged God for any sort of plan. How could he possibly help these people? He was flown to the country. He was driven out to the wasteland so he could see the situation for himself. Tents and people with barely enough food to stay alive as far as the eye can see. The next day, Brad met with the official who was eager to hear his solution to this infinitely difficult problem.
Sheepishly, Brad suggested that they send out a message through the camps asking the people to identify those among them that people come to with their problems. "I'll start by meeting with them," he said. We can only imagine how bizarre this all must seem, but the listeners were gathered, and through the translator, Brad began to explain to them how being able to tell one's stories of trauma actually helps the brain to recover so people can move on. He coached them in active listening skills. He told them not to lecture or try to solve problems, but just listen well, and then send the people off with a blessing of some kind.
Then he gave each of them a plastic name tag, declaring their official status as listeners. All the listeners were to gather every week or so they could listen to one another, process their own experiences.
Imagine if you were in that camp, having lost everything and everyone you held dear, and someone gave you not only a purpose, but a way to truly help others. That's the power of listening.
Another story about our friend Laura and her husband who've worked many years to translate the Bible for a group of people in a very remote part of Asia. Happily, many people are reading the Bible now, listening to it, and quickly coming to Christ.
But this is in an area where whole provinces have been devastated by rampant opium, heroin, and meth use. Sometimes wages are paid only in drugs. People have been praying desperately for some way to change this downward spiral.
Laura spent over a year adapting and translating a program designed to strengthen family relationships. She began to travel to different areas to train people how to teach it, and lots more trainings were planned for this year.
Then COVID prevented her from going back. The people she had trained were distraught that Laura couldn't continue the training, but after realizing the impact of their first efforts, they eagerly took up the challenge.
Laura said, "One of my ladies has done more teaching in a month than I could have managed in a year."
Christians are weaving this culturally relevant way to present the gospel into sermons, Sunday school classes, Bible listening groups, and classes at local schools.
It's even sparking the development of parenting groups, marriage retreats, and outreach to broken families of drug addicts. These things were previously unheard of in these isolated areas, and everyone considers the church as the source of this hope and healing.
In one village, 7 families came to Christ by the end of the teaching. In another village, 14 families came to Christ. And so in rural Asia, the Church of Christ is becoming known as the source for hope and healing for people's deepest pain.
Diane Langberg is a pioneer of Christian trauma work and healing around the world. She says, oh, that's not what we're supposed to say. She says, trauma may be the biggest mission field in the world.
Trauma is a wound of the heart and mind that takes a long time to heal. It hurts every part, our bodies, our thoughts, and our faith.
Healing the Wounds of Trauma is a Christian program we're most familiar with. It's the one I helped to start in Thailand.
This curriculum grew out of the Tumaini Counseling Center in Nairobi that we showed you on the map earlier. It uses proven mental health practices and engagement with God through the Bible. It's been field tested for effectiveness again and again in many parts of the world.
Our Thai program is now run completely by our amazing Thai staff, and it's spread to many parts of Thailand as well as the surrounding countries.
But that's not a surprise because that's exactly what's happening all over the world.
So many countries, so many languages, actually, because of so much worldwide trauma, and many other programs are being developed too.
Oh.
Yeah, wait, no,
Yep.
backwards. Yep, that's
Okay.
good.
Because of violence against Christians in Nigeria, many pastors were slaughtered, instantly turning their wives into widows. Sadly, perhaps because they couldn't provide for these women, even the churches shunned them at a time when they needed community most, leaving them absolutely destitute.
One Nigerian Christian had a special burden for these women, and she helped to form a village of widows. Then someone wondered if it might be possible for these women to become caregivers for the many orphans that were also created by this ongoing conflict. But these widows and orphans alike had experienced so much violent trauma that nobody could really help anybody.
In response to many prayers, this Christian connected with our psychologist friend, Tim. Tim developed a trauma program for these widows.
As the widows began to recover, he was able to train them in a simple play therapy program to use with the children. And it gave them tools to bring healing and community connection.
And so in part of Nigeria, the Church of Christ is becoming known as the source for hope and healing for people's deepest pain.
LeaAnn has a long history in missions. She's collaborated with government agencies in many countries and developed a curriculum in simple language called Understanding People, Mental Health and Trauma. It's full of Christian theology. If you feel offended by anything I say, says LeaAnn to her audience, which are only occasionally Christian, you let me know. We'll talk about that because I never want to offend you. In Togo, some tribal leaders came to her. They were a little jealous because they hadn't been invited to her trainings. We heal people, they said. Why don't you teach us? So the next time she had a chance, she did teach them, right alongside Muslim imams and Christian pastors. She taught them mental health principles in simple language, interlaced with biblical wisdom and the teachings of Jesus. God sent us these gifts, she said to her audience, and he means for us to share them with everyone.
And so when mercy ships pull into ports of developing countries, and LeaAnn is there, teachers and social workers and public servants, even police, military, firefighters, as pictured here.
And so
you
among
already did
among
this.
people of all different faiths in Togo, the Church of Christ is becoming known as the source of hope and healing in their deepest pain.
Now, you may want to mute your sound if you have small children around. There's a little bit of the next slide, which not
They
good for
don't
them to
need to hear.
listen to.
You can do this one.
So God also gave our psychologist friend Tim the vision to come alongside undercover workers working with International Justice Mission. Their goal is to rescue children from sex trafficking and pornography and to prosecute the perpetrators. In order to gather evidence, they have to scrutinize horrible videos from the dark web. Exposure to this level of perversity is difficult for one's soul and can lead to moral injury, not only for the children, but for those who have this job. Tim spends time with these IJM workers, debriefing, offering counsel, and praying with them and their spouses. He's presently working with a Filipino counselor to develop training for workers in many parts of the world who have this kind of exposure. Okay.
Sideways? Can you do it?
No,
Sideways?
well, it's not advancing.
Okay. I'll, well, just.
It's just
Is it because of this?
maybe.
Oh, it worked.
There it goes. All right. In the last few years, national professional counselors are emerging in many countries.
We need to get rid of this, I think.
Maybe. We've had the privilege of training several of them at Cornerstone who've gone on to start professional organizations in their countries.
Okay, should we just go off mine, but we can't see it? How about that?
Well, we're having trouble advancing the slide, and I have no idea why.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, we already told that.
We
Just do the
skipped.
next one. Next slide.
Okay. We could give endless examples of ways God is working in this big hurting world. But before we close, we want to share some insights we've collected from some of our most experienced friends in missions. If you're looking for a mission organization to partner with, it's important to consider what sort of member care they're committed to providing. Also, are there professional resources available on the field, or is it limited to other missionaries that double as member care people?
Can we go to the last one?
All
We
right.
need to. Okay, and you can read it about the child.
Is that one?
Yep.
Learning to be mentally and emotionally healthy is like taking a childbirth class. On the mission field, intense and unpredictable stuff can happen, but the more you know, the better equipped you are to handle whatever comes.
So we had to skip some, but we really want to talk to you some things about the future of missions. The first topic is hippies and other missionaries.
Our son looks a lot like the guy in this picture. He has multicolored dreadlocks and countless tattoos. He does fire dancing and plays unusual instruments. He's an animal rights activist and a website designer, and he's great at loving people.
He has been in ministry groups that attend New Age festivals where there are many thousands of people, where they experiment with every kind of alternative, everything there is. Many are so hungry for some kind of meaningful spirituality that they will do absolutely anything. He and his team make space for love and prayer and conversation with these folks. And boy, does God show up in the most amazing ways.
Within every culture, God has special ways that captures hearts. Would he call himself a missionary? No way. But he and others like him travel and live in strange places with the goal of sharing Christ with others.
We want to talk with you also as we think about the future of working together with secular organizations. Problems like famine, war, trauma, and displaced populations are immense, and they're growing.
With so many people in desperate need, we can't afford to spend time and energy reinventing the wheel so we can put a Christian label on it.
Every day, God uses these organizations to meet tremendous need throughout the world. We actually have much to learn from some of their effective approaches that they use to serve vast populations in underdeveloped areas.
Rather than backing away from them because of values we do not share, what if we worked with them and contributed our efforts as directed by the Holy Spirit? If we continue to be preoccupied with working only within Christian structures, we will miss huge opportunities to be the hands and feet of Jesus.
Jesus died for humanitarian workers too. What if we loved them?
Christ is with us. Christ is in us. Now, how can we develop a love and appreciation for the next generation of missionaries?
They're generous, eager to be citizens of the world and to be part of the change. And God will call them because he still seeks and saves the lost.
Hasn't God used our experiences to prepare us? We can be sure he'll do the same with them. Let's pay attention to what God is showing them. Let's not tether them to the patterns of the past when God may want to do a new thing.
How will we help them navigate the complexities of this world, a world that we tend to shake our heads at?
Lord, may we be able to affirm them as they courageously walk the path that God has marked out for them into the world that will be.
For we all have this treasure in the earthen jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from ourselves.
So if you think you might enjoy helping missionaries overseas, by all means talk to us. Or if you know anyone who's interested in trauma care or mental health as mission, we would love to talk with them.
Thank you for coming today and listening. We know we won't have a lot of time for questions.
We have time.
Steve, you'll have to tell us if we should do anything else. Thank
All right.
you. He can text
Questions,
me.
and our moderator will ask the questions that you've been submitting.
I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay, there's one here.
The questions are going to the moderator's screen, so you may not see anything. Steve, are you there?
That was good.
Hi there. I'm here.
Okay. Do you see any
Sorry,
questions?
I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay.
All right. Maybe you unmute yourself and try to
good point.
ask the questions audibly.
Yeah, that can work.
Hello.
Hello.
I am, my name is Maureen. I've lived 30 years in Puerto Rico. I'm a therapist and I'm up in the mountains of Puerto Rico and I do therapy sessions at a mental health center here. And as a Christian, and I was asked if I heard you all speak and have a heart to reach out and be a caring voice or caring leader for people abroad. I don't know if there's any opportunities on that level, but
I wish I could have heard that. There's so much distortion that I only got a few words. I'm not sure what we're going to do.
okay.
If you're able to type it in the chat, I don't know if Steve could see it or not, but please don't hesitate to call. Let's go ahead and put up our last slide. This is where you could reach us with questions or comments, and we really would love to connect with you, especially since this has been so difficult.
Let's try another question. Maybe that was a glitch in an audio feed. Anybody else with a question?
There's a question about someone who doesn't have is an excellent and experienced psychologist, but does not have mission experience. Can you just talk about her ability to relate to missionaries?
Right. Well, first of all,
question.
missionaries are ordinary people. They really are not much different from whatever other client population you've had up till now. So that is not necessarily a barrier. It is good to have mission experience and to know something about the lives of missionaries. But I think if you were to spend time with them, especially if you were to go overseas, you would quickly learn some of the things you might need to know. I would not think that's a barrier at all.
That is a requirement for you to work at most of these counseling centers that are located overseas, that they want you to have that experience, but that doesn't mean you couldn't understand them. I would say you need to have somebody you can consult when things get into different cultural norms or family patterns that aren't familiar to your culture.
Yeah. So if you're working with
Heath.
nationals, the cultural differences would be the problem. But if you're working with Westerners that you're familiar with, it shouldn't be a problem. And I would say don't let your concern about that be a barrier.
There's a question about providing preventative care for missionaries.
Preventative care. Well, that's sort of like premarital counseling. You know, everybody needs it. And we hope people are smart enough to take advantage of the resources that are there. We hope people recognize where their limitations are, what kind of issues they have, and get some help before they go to the field.
There's so many resources. We know they're out there, and I would just encourage you to contact Barnabas International and ask about that, or even Google it. There's so many podcasts now as well, but we're not prepared to recommend which ones would be especially good for that.
Mm-hmm. And there's a question from David, who works in Puerto Rico, and he's a licensed professional counselor. He wants to be able to use these skills to teach others abroad, or should he use them online? Sorry if I didn't read that right.
That's okay.
Yeah. So the world has changed. We can do a lot of things online now. If he speaks Spanish, well, I'm not clear whether he wants to help missionaries or he wants to help nationals in Puerto Rico.
Others abroad.
So probably, yeah. Did you want to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, well, yes, you can do a lot online. If he's talking about teaching nationals, there's a lot of materials that can be translated or are already translated into Spanish that he can use with nationals.
But we don't want to take away from the value of a face-to-face. That's like, do you want to pray with somebody online, or do you want them in your living room? So it's really important, especially when we want to express that presence of Christ through us, that we not abandon the whole face-to-face thing. And it depends, what God wants you to do. There's pros and cons of both things. We're just thankful that we can communicate with these intimate things over the internet and do what we're able to do.
Okay. Lynn is asking about the things that they can do that are most beneficial for the mental health of a missionary as they return to the States.
Okay, what was the
Things
first
that they
part
can
again?
do.
The most beneficial thing for the mental health of a missionary returning to the States.
Okay.
Rest.
Most beneficial. Well, we think all of the things we shared today were pretty important. We said listening was the most important thing.
Mhm. Rest. They they often don't realize, I mean, this is not just missionaries. We often don't realize what's going on. So by listening, it helps them get it out. It gives them a space to examine what they've been through, what they might want to change, what they might feel stuck in. And that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm.
Mhm. How about a church being involved with their missionary by actually sending a counselor to them on the field?
Yeah, that's great. If a church has that resource, that would be terrific, especially because, well, let's say large missions have member care workers who make visits, but there's still not enough of them. And so anything a church can do, and sending somebody to make a visit would be wonderful. I don't know how many visits a year you can afford, but that would be great.
But I would feel super intimidated if my church announced that they were going to send a counselor to see how I was doing. So you
Mm.
have to be sensitive. It can feel like a heavy muscle, but then some people would be really open to it. So I
Mhm.
think it would depend.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to be a collaborative effort between the missionary and the member care leaders, the church.
Yeah. The last question, can you talk about spiritual formation versus counseling?
Ah, okay. Well, yeah. So counseling is usually problem focused. Spiritual formation is broader. It's more experiential focused about helping people actually connect with the God that they love. Um, yes, I think they're different and they're both needed.
Mm. It's very true, though, that as you develop in your relationship with God, become more open to the Holy Spirit working in the deep parts of your heart, He's able to show you things. And He might teach you things that, but if you have counseling, it's working together. That God can certainly show you things through counseling as well as through Scripture and the Holy Spirit.
Okay. And then someone was asking, what has happened to Care Connection? And Care Connection was hosted for several years as an outgrowth of Mission Connection. And what I can tell you is there just hasn't been the leadership to put that together. There's a lot of desire to see that happen again, but it just hasn't been able to get off the ground again. But we're still hoping and praying that that's still going to happen.
We can't add to that. We've been out of the country.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I incorrectly identified. It wasn't David, who was from Puerto Rico. It was Maureen, and
Yeah.
Maureen is fluent in Spanish.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I saw a question flashed on the screen, but it's gone now.
Oh, but it was a really good one because it was about PTSD. What can you
PTSD.
say
Yeah,
about
how do
coaching
you
somebody
how do
through
you support a
PTSD?
missionary walking through PTSD?
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So there are proven treatments for PTSD. None of them is simple and quick. They take some time and some effort, but there is good help if you find a professional with experience with PTSD.
I bet you've seen a lot of people on the field with PTSD, right, Bill?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I saw another question on there, but it's gone now.
I guess he'll read that.
Okay, just one second. Oh,
Skills
I'm
needed.
going to send you this question. I'll send this question to you in an email. And resources for adult TCKs.
I've seen some podcasts come through. I've seen some material, but we're not familiar with them.
Yeah, there is a podcast that our friend Stephen has that addresses a lot of adult TCKs, and yeah, and there are some if someone searches on adult TCK on the internet, you'll find some people that are blogging about it, and some very good ones.
Okay, good. Seems like there was another question.
I'm going to send this question to you.
On a
Sorry.
text?
Sorry, I'm just going to have to send it in an email.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we're happy to correspond with anybody by email, especially if you're thinking about going overseas. If you're thinking about a member care job, thinking about trying to decide how to choose a mission, we would love to talk with you. Okay.
Just read that.
Yeah, Michelle O'Donnell said, Lauren Wells, who presented a workship earlier today, gave some amazing resources for TCKs.
Yeah, she has a book on building resilient kids, and then she's about to release a new book that is on trauma and loss, grief and trauma.
One
And
of
she
the
grew
things, sorry,
she grew up on the mission field.
One of the things I've really loved about someone that works in Thailand, a Swedish woman, she always does family groups. Like at the end of every school year, she has a whole day seminar on transitions with family, where they do, each person draws what they're concerned about, and it really gives people an opportunity to talk about really important things that would get lost in the shuffle of that moving from their homes to another country.
That's a great idea.
Okay, we understand there's a plenary session at 3, so we think we need to stop. Any last issues for anybody? We're still free. If some of you want to stay online, we can talk to you a little bit.
Okay, it says, anybody looking for research topics with TCKs and something else, contact Michelle O'Donnell. Is that right? Or is that the leader of that, the author of that book?
Michelle's an attendee.
Yeah, I know. So sorry, Michelle, I botched it.
Yeah,
Oh,
contact Lauren Bell, she said.
yeah, that was the author of that book. She wants research on her things that she wrote about.
Well, we want to thank all of you for coming. Thank you that you're interested in this topic. Thank you that you care about missionaries. Thank you that you want to help. We're on your team.
So do we. Yeah, we'll just hang around.
Wow.
We see lots of people that we know. Thanks for coming, guys. Just turn it off. Hi, Larry.
Hi, LeaAnn. I got on.
Good, thanks.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Oh, so glad you could join us finally. So glad we could join. We were a little nervous.
It was wonderful.
Oh, well.
Very enriching.
Well, you've inspired us all the way along.
Good friends make a difference.
Mm.
Okay.
Well, hi, Michelle. Oh, she's still muted.
Mhm.
Hi. It's great to be with you. I had problems with my mic earlier,
Ah,
but it seems to be working now, so that's good.
that's good.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Were you able to hear the Brene Brown video or no?
No, I know the video, but
Oh,
yeah,
gosh.
no, it didn't
Yeah.
come through. So when you send that over, it'll be good. But
Yeah,
it's a
okay.
wonderful
All
video.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And this is a lady we don't know. She's the one that spoke Spanish, but I can't remember her name. She's certainly not David Mahoney.
No, sorry about that.
Did she want to talk to us or what?
Hmm.
You're
Hi.
muted. Hi,
Hi, I'm Maureen Maney, the one
Maureen.
from Puerto Rico. David Maney is my husband. He's an orthopedic surgeon, and unfortunately, I was fascinated by your incredible talk and how trauma may be the biggest mission field. That really struck home, and but unfortunately, my computer completely went out in the middle, so I went over to my husband's computer. That's why there's an identity issue. But my son-in-law and daughter are pastoring an international church in Belgium, in Antwerp. They got me clued into your conference, and they actually listened to other conferences today offered.
Mhm.
And they have 4 children, 10 from 2 to 10, and they're thinking of going into a higher need area, even like they were thinking of Bangladesh or Indonesia, or but with COVID, things have slowed. Anyway, they were listening to several of the workshops, and were also interested in how to transition children that are going into a might be going into a very different environment.
Mhm, mhm.
So I thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let me tell you my Swedish friend's name that's done some really good practical stuff with TCKs. She's the one that invented this transition seminar with families. Her name is very tricky. Ulrika, Ulrika.
Last name.
Ernvik, ERNVIK.
That's right.
And she is in Sweden, but she's fluent in English, and she just had a book come out recently that I believe was in English and Swedish.
Ah, okay.
Mhm.
Do you know the title, or I could probably?
It's something about TCKs,
Okay.
Yeah,
third culture kids, or
it's
somebody know?
it's readily available. It's an amazing book. Sorry, I don't have the title right in
Oh,
front of me, but
Mhm.
good. Well, I have the spelling of her name. I don't know, can't pronounce it.
Ulrika.
yeah.
And she has 5 kids too. We both had 5 kids, and we had a lot to talk about.
Oh, well, that's precious. Well, our kids are kind of third culture kids too, because they were raised in Puerto Rico and then moved to the States.
Yeah, it
They're-
doesn't take long for them to, yeah,
Yeah,
adapt to third culture. Yeah.
yeah.
Feel to them, to their lives. Yeah.
And it can have some upsides too. They're more like world citizens, I think.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
But well, I'm thankful to God for your mission and your work and
Mm,
your realism, but your vision. I love what you said about even working along with humanitarian
mm,
efforts and making it work at a different level. We do mission work in the Dominican Republic also. And
mhm.
so anyway, I love your work and appreciate what you're contributing.
Well, God bless you, Maureen. Thank you.
You know,
Thanks for coming.
blessings.
Okay. We should just go on.
Okay. I think we're going to end.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, Steve, do you want us to turn it off?
Bye-bye.
you guys did great. And
Thank you for helping us.
well, I'm so sorry about all the confusion at the beginning. I don't actually know what happened.
Yeah, that's okay. We
We'll,
just
But-
galloped right through.
we'll all get better at this. Now, where will the, oh, we lost your audio.
Let's just do this.
Yeah, we lost your audio.
Got my video.
Oh,
Oh,
there
now
you
you're
came back.
Now you're
There, yeah. So I don't know, but so I was wondering if we could use if you guys would be interested in using this PowerPoint as kind of the basis of an interview for our Sanctuary Inn for the Innkeepers podcast.
Sure.
Yeah.
And because we have the interview with Dr. Barney, and we have an interview coming up with Lauren Wells, and so we could kind of group a series of interviews together on the whole missionary care and missionary resources.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll talk to Cara, and we'll be in touch about that. But
Great. Thank you.
yeah, if you'd send me the PowerPoint and I'll go through it with Cara, I would love that.
Okay.
Okay. Also, people are going to ask if they recorded this and if
They did.
where to get a hold of it. Would that be obvious after the meeting? All the
They'll
workshops?
probably put a page up with all the seminars and the links to them.
Okay.
That's my guess. And I sent you a document that has everyone's email that's signed in.
Oh, great.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay.
And then let's talk about the, what is that called? PDF of resources and the PowerPoint. How do you
Right.
want us to officially submit that?
Do we just attach it to all of these participants on our own, or does it have to go through Mission Connection?
Or
I-
scan it and go through
I
them?
think you need to talk to Mission Connection. I'm sorry. I don't
Okay.
know the
I'll ask them
answer.
again.
Okay, that's good. The nice
Okay.
thing is that it gives us a little bit of time now that we finished the big push for today, that
Yeah,
we can
right.
fix up our documents a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay. It was, I so enjoyed everything. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. We
Yeah.
wouldn't be here without you. That's
Well,
for sure.
no, you guys did great. And I really, really enjoyed the material.
Oh,
Oh, good.
thanks.
Good.
Okay, take
Yeah.
care,
All right.
Steve. Maybe
Okay,
we'll
thanks so
come up to
much.
see you before long.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.